Great. Okay, so I made that 1 minute pass. So let's kick off. So hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hope the sun is shining where you are. It's lovely in Swansea, which is nice. So today we're going to be delivering a very exciting session by my colleague Alanson, who's a customer success manager within the education team. So today we're going to be talking about creating podcasts with the power of AI using Adobe Podcasts, which is a really fantastic tool. I'm sure some of you have used that already. As we're going through, do feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat, although there will be time for a Q&A at the end as well. And I'll be dropping some links in the chat, so in case you do want to follow along as we're going through. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Alanson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Yeah, like Catherine mentioned, we'll be looking at Adobe Podcast today, and as a side bonus, we'll be looking at Express a little bit to help us, market our podcast and help us do some other things that'll help us, promote the podcast and add some flair to it. So as Catherine mentioned, I'm a customer success manager for Adobe education team based in the Netherlands. So just 1 hour ahead of you guys currently. So today's webinar is about podcasts, and I'll be walking you through the amazing tool that is Adobe Podcast, and it makes podcasting easier and more accessible than ever before. Whether you're somebody just getting into podcasts or an experienced podcaster for that matter, Adobe Podcast has so many features that will help you enhance your recordings, streamline your editing, and it'll help you create really professional grade podcasts quite easily. Before we dive into the app, does anybody here already have a podcast that they make or are planning maybe to start one, or are subscribed to one, or really enthusiastic about one that they're listening to currently? I'd love to see some feedback in the chat if you guys already listen to podcasts. If you don't, then it's a great time to start and to possibly start making one as well. Before I open up the web-based podcasting app, I'd like to just quickly cover some of the unique benefits that podcasting as a medium offers above or in addition to other mediums, especially in education and creative industries. So there's a few reasons why podcasting has been growing over the past few years and why you should consider it. The first one is active listening. So podcasts engage the audiences in their mind and focus their attention because it's purely audio. There's no screen involved, no distraction to watch. It really kind of forces you to listen actively and more, engage more with what's being said in a podcast. So this makes it an excellent tool for learning and communication potentially above video communication. Second point would be flexible learning. So listeners can tune in whenever they want, wherever they want, from a variety of different devices. And it just makes it a really convenient way to consume content. And I'm not putting down sort of video learning in any way, shape, or form, but just it really helps you to be able to just listen to something in the car or when you're taking a walk and don't have to put a screen in front of your face to consume that type of content. Third point would be critical thinking. So listening to a podcast and listening to various people interact within a podcast encourages debate, discussion, and analysis. So perhaps would foster deeper engagement with a topic than if you were just to watch a video and get distracted maybe by what's on the screen. Fourth point would be engagement. So storytelling techniques that would really sort of set up for the pure audio form would be more engaging, and conversational styles to keep people interested in what you're talking about, rather than if you would have added a video to whatever you're presenting in your podcast. Accessibility. So I kind of mentioned that before, but unlike video, podcasts only require audio. So you don't need a screen. It takes away a barrier to entry. You don't need to watch anything. You're just listening with your headphones in or on a speaker somewhere at home or in the bathroom, making it more accessible. And the last point, this one I thought was kind of interesting, is the community building aspect. So podcasts help create I think, a loyal audience that interacts with you and supports your content. Again, video content can do this too, but with podcasts, you have full creative freedom to do this in a different way than what everyone else is already doing on YouTube. So with these benefits in mind, let's jump in to the application, and I'm going to quickly share my screen for that. Give me a second. Share my podcast window here. And I'm also going to be sharing sound because there's some sound involved. So everyone should be able to see the main screen that you see when you go to podcast.adobe.com. And I'll quickly take you through some of the key menus and key buttons you're going to be seeing here and interacting with when you decide to explore Adobe Podcast. The first one that I'll be covering is enhancing speech. So the big black button over here, enhance speech. So there's a really good sample already pre-uploaded to this. So I was thinking about doing my own. This one just it's a really good example. Please do stop me, Catherine, if people are saying that they can't hear my audio, but the audio should be shared, so it should be working. So let me quickly show you first the speech enhancer, and this person's recording with the original speech and no enhancement applied.
Hey, Sam here, the lead designer on Adobe Podcast, and I'm out here in front of some construction by the Adobe New York City Union Square office.
Okay, as you can hear, there's a lot of background noise, and just, you can hear him, but he's not very clearly audible. So let me quickly rewind all the way to the beginning and hit enhanced and click play again.
Hey, Sam here, the lead designer on Adobe Podcast, and I'm out here in front of some construction by the Adobe New York City Union Square office, and just recording this video to give you a little sample to try out enhanced speech.
As you can see, that really made a big difference. And you can go in and upload any of your audio and or video and take the audio from the video and enhance it to remove background noise and static and things like that. So that's the enhanced speech feature. And let's go back and quickly head to the mic check feature here, which helps you check your mic. So before you start your podcast and before you invite people to collaborate with you on your podcast, you can at least check that your mic is working well, that there's no errors or background noise that you could take care of before you start your podcast. So I'll do a quick demonstration of that. You just hit start, and you click test mic, and then you just kind of repeat the sentence they want you to say here, and then it'll let you know if you're good to go or whether you need to take care of some stuff. How's my microphone setup and placement? Oh, as you can see, it's telling me that I'm a little bit too far from my mic, although that's, in my case, weird because I'm using my AirPods, but it's something to maybe keep in mind. And the gain is a little too high. Background noise is good because I'm using noise canceling, so that's good. And the echo is good too. So this is just a good way for you to test your setup before you dive into actually recording this. So next feature I'm going to jump towards is down here at the bottom, which is editing an audio file. So, and I'm all just showing all of the things before I actually dive into recording a podcast. Here you're able to come in, and if you have some pre-recorded audio that you've recorded from before you decided to do a podcast and you want to edit that to be shorter, for example, then you can just drag and drop that into here, or click choose file and open from here. And then you can go ahead and edit your audio file and take care of that and download it and export it to other programs or use it for other projects that you're working on. So back here. Now that we've looked at the enhancing speech and the mic check, we're going to jump into the recording studio, which is where you will actually go and record your podcast. And as you can see, so I had some old projects here. There's some templates that you can use to start off with. But if you want to start a new project from scratch, you would click New Project right here. And before I look or click the Start Recording button, there's a few other options that that you should be aware of, and you could opt to use before you record your podcast, which is uploading sounds and files before you start. If you want to make those part of your project, like transitionary music and things like that, or transitionary sounds or sound effects, you can upload those here. Same for the music. If you want to add like introduction or outro music for when you're done, or if you're jumping from segment to segment, this is where you can add the music. Placeholders are, yeah, if you because your project will show up here as sort of a workflow going from top to bottom, and if you want to add in little placeholders for you to come back in later and add, more speech to it, or audio, or transitionary audio, or anything, you can add those placeholders in between your audio or your music. And you have some filters here, so you can strengthen and enhance speech. So that is optional and available here from the side. So heading back to the main screen here now. So let's say you're ready to start recording, but you think, oh, I want to actually invite a guest to help me record my podcast. So you can invite them two different ways. You can invite them with a shareable link. So you just click here, you create a shareable link, and you could just send that to them through, WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook, whatever social media you're using, or just an email. So you can type in the person's email and send them an invitation, and they'll just head into their inbox, find the invitation, and open it, and it'll take them straight into your studio, and they'll be able to talk with you about something that you guys are both interested in. And then finally, we have the upload audio here. That is kind of a double function, but this is the same function as this upload button here on the left. Just a bit more centered and easier for you to see. So when you're ready to start recording your podcast, you would click Start Recording. And so right now we're recording, and as you can see, it's showing up that it's picking up my voice, recording everything. And if there's other participants in your podcast, they would show up below with their own little box and their own little speech being picked up. And you guys would just start talking away and discuss what you discuss in a podcast, and stop stop when you're done. You could take a break and then later come back and continue, and just stitch that all together in sort of post-processing of your recording. So I'm just going to hit stop right now. And as you can see, it just shows what I just said shows up as a little snippet here, little 39-second snippet, and it's actually transcribing it. So you can quickly see, that was quite quick. And it just transcribed what I said. And that's a good way for you to sort of keep an overview of who said what and what they said exactly. And of course, the audio is still there. It just transcribed it into text for the person editing the podcast to be able to come in and maybe stitch things together in a different way, or add music between certain parts. So that would be the general flow of recording your podcast, and afterwards going in and uploading pieces of music or sound effects to fit in between every paragraph, every 15 minutes you might want to add something. That's completely up to you, and you're free in editing that completely the way you want to. All right. So, and you're probably familiar with Adobe Express, and just like in Express, it'll save any project sort of automatically. So there's an autosave feature, so you never really have to worry about, oh, did I hit save and did I just lose a bunch of audio? It's all auto-saved and ready for you to go and pick back up when you're ready again. So below the three projects that I've started here previously. There are some templates for you to start. So if you are looking for inspiration or you have a specific topic that you feel, hey, there might be a template out there for that to inspire me and to help me create this content, you're free to, browse those and have a look. So I'll just open up the space project and it asks you, do you want to create a new project? So let's say, yes, I'll create a new project. And here is a great example of how what I just started from, blank slate would look after some editing and some more thought, being put into the whole process. So you'd end up with some audio. And let me just start that here.
Telescope is one of the most ambitious missions ever sent to space. It's now 1 million miles away, will help reveal untold secrets of the universe.
All right, so that was a really quick example of someone who had, recorded some text, some speech, and put a background sort of introductory song into their introductory sentence. And then they slowly have it fade away when they start. And then there's a transition short. And here you see there's little placeholders in between for you to come in and sort of add notes, or, if you're working with somebody else, some instructions for them, sort of how you would like to continue the podcast or how it should be edited. So this is how that would end up looking. So that was a template for you to be able to start with if you'd want. And there's a few more templates to start with, and you can give them feedback if you're interested in that. But that pretty much covers, the nitty-gritty of, recording your audio and editing it in the podcast app. And then we get to the next part, which is, well, you've recorded a cool podcast and you've gotten some friends or colleagues to join in and give their opinions. Now, the next step is, marketing and giving cool graphics to your podcast. Let's say you really push through with everything and you start up a podcast series and you really become serious about it. The next step is to create a logo, possibly some social media posts to really promote your podcast and get your audience. And that's where Adobe Express would come in. So clicking on the More Templates button here takes you to this page where you can search through a lot of podcast title graphics, basically to be inspired and to possibly just take one of them and work from there if you want. So if that's something you want to do, you would hit edit the template right under the template. And that's when it would actually take you into Adobe Express. So that just basically hot links you into Express, and it opens up the template that you just looked at and selected. And so from here, you're able to go in and edit this space. Whoops, need to be a bit bigger. You get the idea. That would need to fit a bit. Let me see here. There we go. We call it Space Session Podcast because we just had an example of space. So just quickly show you how easy it is to just go in and create and edit the previously existing template. Now, if that is not what you're looking for, and you're looking for something completely from scratch, you can go in and I would suggest just heading to the generative AI part and generate an image. So let's say a logo for my podcast about space. Now that's just a really simple prompt and probably won't exactly give me it'll give me what it's told to do, but it might not be exactly what I'm looking for, what I had in my mind. But it's a great place to start, and it's a great place to start with something original because it'll probably generate something that nobody has generated and nobody's seen before. So it's a great jumping off point for anybody looking to create some original content here. Great. So the text might be a bit gibberish, but it is very cool and in line with what I would sort of look at if I was making a probably yeah, this is cool. Sort of a microphone that kind of looks like a spaceship, and then the text I'd probably go in and edit that with the editor, and change that into my space podcast, and I'd pretty much be good to go. Unless you really like going in and editing this more. For me, for my purposes personally, this would be good enough. And like I said, I would just need to change the text here to read my space podcast, or put my name up there, and that's it. I would be personally good to go. And of course, Express would give you the freedom to go in and edit this for as long and as much and as detailed as you would like. So after being successful at your logo, the next step would be social media promotion. So you'd be able to take the logo and then go into a social media template. So you might want to create a Instagram square post, although that logo is already probably in the correct format. In here, you'd just be able to come in and upload that image you just made, and tailor it into an Instagram post. And you'd be able to add sort of graphical elements or other stuff that I'm not a big social media user, but Instagram, Facebook, all those templates, you'd be able to come in and use them to create the appropriate size for all those social media posts. Let's see. Have there been any questions, Catherine? Have I missed anything? Anything that I could?
Yeah, we just had a question actually from Mark. Mark has asked a question. Do you recommend using an external microphone to record the podcast?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so that depends on how serious. I would say personally that depends on how serious you are planning to get with the podcast. Right now, I'm just using my AirPod built-in microphone, and if you guys think that sounds good, then that's a great example of what could sound like this if you're simply just using your AirPods. I personally here have a standalone mic on my desk. It's just not connected to my laptop at the moment, so I can't really didn't want to go through the hassle of plugging that in. But I do have a standalone mic, and I use it for other things. So personally, I do think it's worth it, and it does sound a bit clearer than built-in headphone mics. So yeah, that's completely up to personal taste, and if you have the budget to do it, then I would say yeah, go ahead, because standalone mics do sound really great. So good question, and it's advisable if you're really getting into podcasts professionally, for sure, and especially if you have guests that come into your live that you can sit around a table. Some of these mics are meant for multi-directional audio, so you can all just sort of speak into one mic. Up to the point where you get really professional and just have a mics for everybody. So yeah, standalone mics really, really good. Can advise it.
Great, thank you. That's it for questions for now. All
right, cool. Then there are a few best practices that I'd like to pass along. Some podcast best practices that might not be super obvious, and that'll help you create really good podcasts. The first one would be to plan your episodes. So obviously you could sort of set up, and it could become your trademark is just to have freestyle podcasting. So you just start, some people do that, sort of the more rambling style podcasts where you just open up a mic and just start talking, and you could talk for hours. If you really want to get a certain point across, or if there's some really specific topics that you're talking about, it will be really good for you to outline the key topics and create a structure before you start recording, because otherwise you can end up rambling for too long, and your audience might not be as big as you had hoped, because lots of people do kind of look for structure in their podcasts. The second one that I had written this down, so that comes back to the question: investing in good audio, using a good mic, and then if you don't have the budget to do so, using the enhancing tool really is a really good best practice to do, rather than just leaving the raw audio that you've recorded on there. It's always good to just pass it through the enhancer at least once. Third one would be being consistent. So whether that be the way you speak, the way you sort of present yourself in the podcast, be consistent in that. Secondly, being consistent at in a schedule, so maybe once a day, once a week, bi-weekly. It's good to have structure in those things. Engaging with listeners is another good one. So encouraging feedback from your listeners. If you want to improve and if you want to create a sort of dedicated audience that keeps coming back and listen to what you have to say, great to engage with them and listen to what they have to say, and potentially even invite them onto the show one at a time or two at a time if that's something seems cool to you. Another one is optimizing your podcast for search engine optimization. So SEO, using relevant keywords in your titles and descriptions of your podcasts will really help bring you up in search results when people are searching for podcasts. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And lastly, as I mentioned, it's really important after you've created your podcast to successfully promote it, is sharing on social media, embedding it on your website if you have one, and possibly also trying to collaborate with other more well-known podcasters, getting invited on their show or having them plug your show quickly in a 5-second sort of, hey, listen to this other podcaster, he does really cool stuff. That's another great way to promote your content across different channels. So having gone through those best practices, the last thing for me to say is to just have a go. Just open it up and have a go. Play around, invite friends, colleagues, family, invite them into your podcast and just have create a podcast together. Don't forget to enhance your audio. Really help bring out sort of the professionalism and great quality podcasts. Sharing it. Don't forget to share. And just have fun. I'll stop sharing. Hopefully that was informative for everybody. And if there's any questions, I have the chat open now, so I can also follow along. Some people are still typing. And Catherine, if you feel I've maybe forgotten something or maybe I should mention something else, let me know.
No, that was great. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say is, as we have a little bit of time, if anyone would like to actually go into the podcast tool and give it a try, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have anything prepared, but even if it's just a couple of lines, we are obviously here right now. So if you need any support with that, feel free to go on mute if you want to take a minute to just go ahead and try it out. And you can share that with us or just let us know if you run into any problems. That'd be great. And it looks like we have something here from Alicia as well. Have you got any advice around transcripts? For those of us in education settings, it would be best practice to provide a transcript for students. Yes, absolutely. So, Alicia, I don't know if you want to come off mute just to give us a little bit more information on that. If not, that's absolutely fine. So, it's not letting you come off mute. Let me see.
Is that something I can do? Let me see. Oh, here we go. I have to.
There we go.
I've allowed Alicia to use her mic, but I think you might still have to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
So yeah, Alicia, that sounds great, and I can totally see where you're coming from. So just to get a bit more, just to check I'm on the right tracks, is it that you want students to provide them with a document, a transcript on a document, so they can sort of upload that into podcast to work from? Am I on the right tracks there?
No, it was more thinking, I know at our institution, creating podcasts is probably something we would encourage for some of the reasons that Alanson was outlining before, particularly that flexibility side of it, for students to be able to engage with content whilst doing something else. We know they're very busy, as we all are, but from an accessibility point of view, whereas for some people that'd be really handy to have an audio file, for others we know that they wouldn't be able to engage with that, so you would need to provide an alternative. So it's just wondering if there are any tips for, because I can see that there's a transcription tool, and how does that manage to deal with if there are multiple speakers, because obviously on transcripts normally you'd name the speakers and that kind of thing. how does it cope with that side of things?
Alan,
Thank you.
so
Sorry, lots of questions.
that's all
Yeah,
right. No, that's a good
no
question.
problem.
As you've got the tool open, I know there are some samples available with a couple of different guests involved. Would it be possible to pull that up just so we can see
Yeah,
how that looks
sure.
on the transcription?
Let me just check. Do you know which one? Let me see quickly here. Right. Do you know?
Let's see.
Do you know which one of the podcasts it is? Because that's not the
Yeah,
one.
so actually I've managed to pull one up. So if I just go ahead and share my screen.
You share screen? Yep. Go ahead.
Okay.
Here we go. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a sample project that you'll all have access to from your dashboard on Adobe Podcast. So this was created within the Adobe Education team, the developers of this, and you can see from the transcription how that looks to have those different guests sort of collaborating all together. So is that what you were looking at, Alicia? How that would look if students were to collaborate on a transcription?
Yeah, so as it stands, you'd have to sort of copy this out into a separate document if we wanted to share it via Word or something like that. So I guess it would be on the creator then to just put the names against the bits of text.
Yes, yes. You can actually, if you go to download, you can export the transcript. So you've got the option to download it as just text or a Word document or a PDF there as well. So I suppose, but what you could do if you had one transcript that you wanted to distribute, you could create that as a project from your side, share that with all of your students by inputting their emails in the collaboration space, which Alanson showed. But then if you wanted it to be their own document that they could then edit without affecting the original, they would simply duplicate that project. So it's their own from then on, and they could invite other collaborators into that as well. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so, because actually there's another use there. I was thinking more if we were sharing audio files via the VLE, for example, we'd have to put a transcript. But actually that's a good idea for if you are for student assessment or group work, you're asking them to create the podcast and asking them to create an equivalent transcript. They've got the option of doing that together, so that's useful. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's all right, no worries. And also we do have the audiograms, which is sort of a newer additional feature in here as well, which is if you was going to have a video and wanted sort of the transcription alongside that as well, you do have the option to create that audiogram here as well, which is another very useful tool. And you can choose how that looks, whether it's landscape, portrait. So if you wanted to post that to different socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, then you can amend that accordingly as well. I'll just stop sharing my screen because you've got any other questions. Any questions from anyone else or anything else that you'd like to see? Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Otherwise, while we're here, I'm going to drop a few other links in for you as well. So we have the Adobe Creative Campus newsletter. If you're not yet subscribed to that, I highly recommend doing so. Any feature updates relevant for education, any events or opportunities for students, we do highlight in that monthly newsletter. Also, we have another Adobe Education Institute coming up in May. Again, that's going to be focused on Adobe Express, and there will be another podcast session within that as well. If you haven't joined one of those before, or even if you have and want to come back for some more, please do come along to that. There are many sessions running from the 6th to the 9th of May. Just drop the link in the chat for that as well. So feel free to check out some of those sessions that are available. Otherwise, that session brings our sort of first term of the year to a close with the Adobe Skills Lab. Our next one will be launching now term 2 on the 22nd of April, where we've got Adobe Express brands and templates. So again, I'll drop a link in the chat for that, so you can feel free to have a look at what's coming up in term 2. So we'll hang around for another few minutes just in case anyone does have any questions or if you wanted to give it a try. Otherwise, thank you everybody for coming along to the session today. I hope it's been really useful for you, and thank you, Alanson. That was a great session. Just to add, I suppose, in case there are any musicians in the room, I've been playing around with it for music as well. I used to be a singing teacher, and it's really, really excellent for that studio quality for singing as well. So another purpose for you. Lovely. Thanks, Alicia. Thanks, Joshua.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.